When it comes to recruiting, don't just focus on those online, what you can pay for tactics. Get out there, get local, and build some relationships. All right, welcome to the Field Famous podcast, brought to you by Field Routes, a show that shines a light on the field service industries and the dedicated professionals that grind every day on their journey to success. I am your host, Christopher Fasano. Before we begin, I want to remind everybody that the best way to receive new episodes of this show is to follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite pod player. The show will also be available in a video format if you prefer to watch a video than over an audio. So please, you can subscribe right there on YouTube so you'll get all of the episodes as they come out. Last but not least, if you really love the show, please let us know by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. So today on our episode, we have Adam Creed. Adam is the recruiting director at ABC Home and Commercial Services, and he joins us today on the Field Famous podcast. Adam, welcome to the show.
Chris, thank you. Good to be here.
So I'm going to ask this of every guest in the spirit of Field Famous. Are you ready to be Field Famous today?
I'm ready.
I'm ready. Let's go. All right, good.
Yeah.
If you said you weren't, we would still do the interview anyway. So it's best that you just agreed to being Field Famous for the day. And our shine light on yourself on ABC. So tell me, the best way to talk about a journey is to find out how you got started. So you're at ABC now. How did you get into the broader industry? And tell us a little bit about yourself in that regard.
Okay. Well, much like I guess a lot of people that get into the pest control industry, we all kind of find it. We don't necessarily all start out with the intentions of ending up here. I've been with ABC for the past 12 years, but when I got here, I had previously had my own insurance office.
Okay.
I've been in the insurance industry for the previous decade, and it was just time to do something different. And I had no idea what that looked like. But when I got out of the business, obviously letters went out to my existing clients that I was no longer going to be servicing them as their insurance agent. And one of my insureds happened to be employed here. And so
at
to make
ABC.
At ABC,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
And so to make a long story short, he called me up and, he said, look, you managed to sell me life insurance when nobody else could. He said, so if you can sell me life insurance, we need your skill set at ABC.
Wow.
And so quite honestly, Chris, that is the beginning of the journey right there.
So it wasn't like, this is an interesting situation. That industry is interesting to me, and the pest control. Never would you have thought, let me try that road.
I don't think ever. And I one of my mentors in this industry, I mean, he always used to say, nobody ever woke up and said, hey, I want to be in pest control. He said, for the most of everybody that's in this industry, they got into it one way or another,
right.
And almost everybody's story is different.
Right, which is what I love. I love that, by the way, from someone that's hosting a show in particular about it. You're never going to come across a similar story about anybody that, all the people I've asked, it's that, and it's frequently like you're saying, I've never thought about that. I would have never thought that. And here I am now. And it's something I would never not do. Right. So it's very, very, very intriguing in that way and as an industry.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, the tie-in was, I came into ABC in commercial sales. I'd been in sales my whole life. So the sales piece of it wasn't,
right.
Anything
right.
that I had to learn. Now, the pest control
Correct.
piece of it, I've been in the industry for 12 years and I learn something every day. It's an amazing industry to be in, and I've been blessed to be here at ABC, and I've been blessed with the opportunities to advance and to learn and to grow and to share that knowledge with other people that I work with as well. So it's been an incredible 12 years.
Just a quick note about ABC. Tell us a little bit about the company. This is not a small mom and pop shop in the backyard, right? This is a big company. Am I right? Can you give a little bit of background about it's where it is now, and maybe from when you got there to where you are now?
Okay, well, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of the company as a whole. Founded in 1949 in San Antonio, Texas, and it's grown from there. We currently have offices all over the state of Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth, obviously, Houston, Austin, Corpus Christi, San Antonio. We take care of the state of Oklahoma out of the North Texas office. We have a divisional office up in Oklahoma City. Here in Dallas, Fort Fort Worth, when I started here 12 years ago, we were probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 85 to 90 employees. Right now, 12 years later, we're probably sitting right in the area of 260, 265.
Wow.
And over the last decade, to get to where we are now with ABC Home and Commercial Services, when I started, we sold pest control commercially and residentially, and we took care of lawns as well. Over that time, the business model has expanded. We touch on, we now do HVAC, handyman, plumbing, pool, repair and maintenance. So the business model has morphed into that, and essentially what we're trying to be, whether you are a homeowner or whether you're a business owner, you're going to have situations that come up, and we are, we strive to be a premier service company in all the different business models that we have.
It's such a great business model, because I can tell you from a homeowner perspective, you're going to have problems in many of those areas. And I'd much rather call one place. I'd much rather have one place that's going to come, it's going to take care of the mouse in my basement, my pool in the backyard, and my lawn and everything all in one shot. Like it makes from checking the boxes of the stuff I have to do and with my life and my busy life, I would prefer that. Now I know there's challenges with that model, right? And it's not all the same. The technician, the skill sets, things are different, right? So I imagine it's not a business model that every shop can just jump in.
Oh no, I mean you're spot on there, Chris. I mean, the skill set that's required to be in our plumbing division or our HVAC division or our pest division, all of them, you're going to have a level of certification. You're going to be licensed by the state, but each and every one of those has its own particular, set of criteria that you have to go through. There's different testing for each of those, but it's from the offering standpoint, though, as to your point, as a homeowner, it's much easier to have one phone call, one business, one billing, one everything to call, and it's less, to keep up with from an individual perspective or a business perspective. So it's why we've done what we've done.
Now, when you got there, were you in sales from the beginning and then got into where you are now? Tell me a little bit about your movings within the company, so we can understand, your skill set within the industry, and then we'll get to where you are now, because there's a lot of questions around recruiting and things like this as a major piece of growth for a company in this space. In order to scale, you got to be able to staff and things like that. So go ahead, please.
Okay, so yes, when I got here 12 years ago, I came into the commercial sales division. Obviously, your daily routine was out in the streets looking for new business, chasing down leads, and trying to grow and develop a customer base from there. And so I did that for the first couple of years that I was here. Part of that that sales piece, took me into commercial accounts that were either food processing or blending or manufacturing or storage, and those are all audited accounts. And that has been here in Dallas. That's been a large part of our business model, is the food industry, from the standpoint of, like I said, manufacturing, shipping, storing, what have you. And so we developed and had started to develop, and as that part of the business grew, we needed a more robust quality assurance program, and so we were needing to put some bodies into that. So I came out of the sales piece of it and then went into the quality assurance side of it, helping to build and grow that program. And so now we have an entire staff that goes out to all of our audited accounts. We sit in on audits. We do quarterly building and business assessments with our food partners. And so, helped develop that part in QA. Then a few years after that, took over for about 3 years the commercial operations division, actually ran that part of it. And so all the daily technicians that would go out and handle all of the commercial accounts oversaw that, the routing and everything involved with running a division. And so, through all of that experience and through all of those years with the company, fast forward to, today, had the opportunity to jump into the recruiting side of it. And for me, it's kind of a full circle. To me, recruiting is still sales. I'm selling the company to potential candidates that want to come here and want to be a part of what we do. So, first and foremost, now I have to sell those opportunities because we're competing with every other company that's out there looking for talent these days. So part of it is to tell this story, to talk about how we do what we do and what makes us different.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're right. It is you're selling a product. The product just happens to be the company that you're working for, right? So I guess part of that is you have to have a good product to sell, right? Because otherwise it's hard to do that. And I think also for someone that it's interesting, you're employed by that product that you're trying to sell to others to come join you. So you kind of have to have a good feel for the place you work and feel like you would want genuinely someone hey, you could do well here. This is a good fit for you, and you're not BSing them, right? Because I think that would come through. It's a different kind of sale, but what do you see as the differences in a sale? Like if you're selling an insurance product, you're selling residential or commercial pest, or you're selling the job to do such. Is similar? Do you take a similar sales approach? I'm just curious of the X's and O's there.
Well, I think anytime you're dealing with sales, you're selling a product or a service to somebody. And so, the opportunities that I'm presenting to candidates that want to come to work here, it's the same thing. It's really still a personal transaction. So a lot of how I would approach a sale or a prospective client in a sale, when I sit down and interview with a candidate and talk to them about the job and answer the questions that they have coming in, before they ever get to their interview, I try to, as I'm going through resumes and I'm having those conversations, I try to pull little pieces out of them that I know will make them happy here and kind of, relate to them and show them, maybe in a different way that I'm sure other people aren't doing. The competitive market that we're in, people can have 3 or 4 interviews in a day. So I want to do something the way we do it, so that at the end of the day, when you're sitting back and going, okay, I had 3 interviews today, which felt right, what felt better. I want to try from our perspective. I want to try to make it feels like you're already a part of us.
In marketing, we call it brand recall. And in psychology, it's one of the key things in neuroscience that they teach is, your brain doesn't like to make memories because it's got a lot of things to do. So force it to make a memory. And if someone can remember you, you are good, right? Because no matter through all the crap or the things that they have in their life, they're going to come back to that thing. So it sounds like to me what you're saying is you're looking for those pieces that you can say, Chris seems to really X, Y, and Z. I can relate X to this at ABC and Y to this at ABC. And I'm going to try to do that, which is very smart because it leaves them thinking, wow, they really understand me, or I think I can fit in there. So that's very smart. And I don't make it. It's not to be sounded manipulative. It's true. Like if you're trying to get to know someone on paper and relate it to how they would do in the job and the function.
No, and you're exactly right. And when you said, in your summary there that make them feel like they fit in. When I'm looking at a potential candidate, everybody comes in through our applicant tracking system. The first thing I do is I see a resume. But then when I do my 5-minute, 10-minute interview with, Chris, the candidate, hey, is there any questions you have about the job? Anything I can help you with? That's my opportunity at that point for me to look and see, we have a culture here, and part of making a successful candidate, a successful employee, is putting them in the piece of the business where, their skill set, but their aptitude as well, where it best fits into the company culture. All companies have a culture.
Right.
Some of them are good, some of them aren't so good. But you got to, I think it's important, and it's an important part of the process for us anyway, to make sure that it's not just a skill set fit, but the candidate is a good culture fit as well. Because if that person's a good culture fit, they're going to be happier.
Right.
And they're going
and so will
to
you be then, in turn.
Exactly. So it's a win-win for both of us.
Yep. Talk to me about where you stand with experience when you're looking at resumes. Let's look at, because you're a different case, your company, because you do different things. Like some of the trades might require a certain, certification or certain thing like that. But if we're we're talking about pest control and we're just looking here, are you hard and fast by requirements, or would you prefer to just find somebody that has demonstrated a previous workability, a competency, a responsibility? Basically, what I'm saying is not necessarily coming from the same industry. Someone comes to you, they didn't have pest control, but they're, do you, maybe if it's between one or two, maybe that takes into account, but do you exclude right off the bat, or do you just try to be inclusive and look at the person as a whole and what they've done in the past?
Well, great question, and there's a lot of different components to that question. So I'll hopefully remember.
Sorry.
I'll hopefully remember.
Right, we can rephrase it. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's fine. But it was a great question. But no, sometimes. Oftentimes, the one of the best candidates is going to be somebody that doesn't necessarily come in with experience. We find that people that have no experience don't run into the opportunity to tell you 3 weeks after they get here, well, this isn't the way I've done it before.
Right.
Or where I used to work, we did it this way. If someone comes in with no experience, it's never a negative. Okay.
That's important for everybody to understand.
Right.
Yep. Go ahead.
Because then we get a chance. To teach you our ways, our methods, the whys and the ins and the outs of everything that we do, and that's what you're learning for the first time. So that now. We don't have to break bad habits or old habits that you bring from somewhere else. So, a candidate not having experience is not necessarily a negative factor. We never really, I can honestly say we don't exclude anybody based off of a first look of a resume. They found something in themselves that led them to apply for our position. Every candidate that we have goes through an assessment. Okay, it's a really quick 3 to 4 minute assessment, and everybody that works at ABC, once we started this particular assessment piece, all of the current employees had to take it, and we didn't move people around. After the assessment and go, okay, well, your numbers doesn't suggest that you're good at what you're doing. We're going to put you here. No, we just, the assessment is another tool in the toolbox. So everybody gets that assessment, and it tells us things that a resume can't tell us.
Yeah.
And it tells the interviewing and the hiring managers just a little bit more detail of what that person is like outside of work, what that person's like at work, and how that person is wired, if you will.
They get that assessment upon submitting the resume, or only on the next step?
Upon submitting their resume.
Okay.
Upon submitting their resume.
All right.
And now, a lot of times, people, for whatever reason, maybe it goes to their spam or their junk folder. They don't see it up front. But you don't have to complete it before you get an interview. You can get an interview before. Now, before we bring you on board, it will have to be completed.
Right.
But it's just another tool in the toolbox. So the resume is one piece. The phone conversation I'm going to have with the prospective candidate is another piece. The assessment is a third piece, and then that in-person interview with the hiring team in each department, that's another piece. And you put it all together, and and the hiring managers make their decision from there. But we're making a decision with a lot of input and a lot of data and a lot of time invested in making sure that it's a right fit, not just for us, but for that candidate as well.
Right. Yeah. I like that because a lot of resumes can be all different, but you can standardize everybody by maybe what you're doing. You're asking them to fill these things out, and you're asking everybody to do that. So you'll have a nice baseline based on a set of standardized questions or things, and you can get a easier way to compare candidates across based on those and then their own experiences. So that's a nice strategy. I think one of the, in previous life marketing for pest control in these industries, one of the bigger challenges always was, as a marketer or marketing and sales, the demand might be there. You can capture it all day long. So like for pest as an example, right? There's always going to be pests. And if you're in the right market and you're doing the right things, you're going to get phone calls and you're going to have business. But if you want to continue to grow that business, you have to be able to meet the scale, and you have to be able to staff it up in a way where you can meet that demand and be able to service them on time. One of the challenges on top of that is that it could be a seasonal business. It is a seasonal business, and I guess it's more seasonal depending on where you live. And in certain, so where we are in upstate New York, it's very cold in shoulder months and very warm in the summer. So you can see how that works. And staffing a seasonal business can be very complicated and complex. So just because you might have a bigger need or more demand, right? More trucks going out, things like that. So I'm wondering if you can maybe riff with me on that for a little bit and some of the challenges you've seen in that regard and how you look to meet that. I know a lot of people's strategies is we're not seasonal in our employees. Our goal is to keep them employed all year round and make sure there's work and X, Y, and Z. But I'm just curious to talk to you a little bit about that strategy and how you approach it in the position that you're in.
Okay. Well, I know when I look back and, when I first got here, we did perceive, let's say, November, December, January, and February as the slow period.
Slower months, relative, right.
Slower months, right. Because, obviously, a lot of your insects are going to slow down during the winter. But what we found and what seems to have happened is when the insects slow down, the rodents pick up.
Yeah. And
so, pest problems are pest problems no matter what. So it's really been, it's kind of a misnomer anymore to talk about the slow season, because really from our experience anyway here in North Texas, when the temperatures drop, the rodents want to come in.
Right.
They want to come into where you work. They want to come into where you live.
Right.
And people don't want to see them anyway.
Right.
So, the old adage of the slow season, or the downtime, if you will, has kind of, taken a back seat. But it is more challenging sometimes during those months. And one of the things that we have to our advantage is the different lines of services. So it could be that, our pool maintenance or our grounds crews, they go hang Christmas lights, or they can go they can drive and learn and be part of an installation crew, or, because we have different business models.
I'm using the word repurpose. That's not what I mean, but there's a shift.
Cross-training, if you will.
Right, okay. Yep.
Yeah. So one of the things, for us, we have that advantage. But for companies that would have less lines of business, or maybe just be a single line of business company, then the opportunity to, have seasonal work, if you will, would probably be a greater opportunity. But again, you can look at doing different things like putting up Christmas lights and taking them down, and, that can get you through a slower period. One of the things we did this year is we found a local nursery that offered Christmas tree delivery to its customers. So our lawn crews that maybe are doing a lot less, well, not maybe, they're doing a lot less lawn work.
Right.
We were able to team up with this local nursery chain and deliver their Christmas trees, take them from the nursery, put them to the customer's house, set them up in the house. So you find other ways to keep those seasonal employees, if you will, keep them productive, keep them busy, and, support their families as well.
Yeah. It's the Christmas lights thing has become a real thing. I keep seeing more and more of this. And even now, for me on the residential as a consumer on that side, I see these companies really pushing that. It makes a lot of sense. Find something that go into someone's house, right? You're going to someone's house. The other one I see are the garbage bins. Those sorts of things where the people will offer those cleaning services of garbage bins, things like that. A little bit about data and the use of data in this. I'm curious to hear about how you approach this. Where I'm going with that is, if an employee, maybe it's a technician going out on routes, I've heard of strategies. Some places have routes that go all over the place, and you have technicians driving all over the place, which leaves their day scattered, and they're a little bit, that could be a little deflating, if you will, to the tech, just because they're dead. Whereas if you're super efficient and you're doing it right, air quotes right, you have a very defined route in a very neighborhood that's very thought out and efficient, that allows them to get more done. Presumably, if they're commissioned, they're making more money, they're happier. But that requires an efficiency and a real deep look into what's going on. So I'm curious how, if you're using that to devise everything, and how you've seen that sort of data infrastructure change since you've been in the industry.
Yeah, well, yeah. And you touched on an important part there. How are the technicians paid? Some companies will pay hourly. Some people pay, production. So we pay production. So obviously, if our guys are stuck, behind the windshield all the time, they're having less of an opportunity throughout their day to work a job, right, and make right, production base. So we do have an office team that's dedicated to making sure that the routes are condensed, to make sure that they're tight, and we minimize windshield time both for our commercial techs and our residential techs as much as possible. We understand, like I said, if they're not getting an hourly check, so they're not being paid to drive. So we try to make sure, and we look at those routes month over month. We set everything up quarterly, so the routes are set up quarterly. And it allows for new customers coming in. There's room built in so that we can drop new customers in without causing a complete upheaval. But there's just a lot of people behind the scenes that work on that.
They really look at that stuff. Yep.
And really have to look at it and stay on top of it, because one of the things that's going to cause turnover with you technicians is, to your point earlier,
I'm stuck behind this car all day long. Driving.
Not stuck in traffic, not driving from job to job, and keeping them busy and keeping them making that production pay. So, so there's a great deal of time and effort goes into scheduling and routing and everything else. And it is something that, like I said, we focus on that every single day.
Do you guys? There's a tactic that I've seen used a lot to success, and that is, internal sort of competitions, if you want to call them, fun little sales games, or maybe it's tied to production based on staff. Do you do any of those sort of things to incentivize work? I mean, I would imagine the work would have to be able to be not equal, but someone has to have the ability to produce and earn in a similar way in order for you to do that. But do you incentivize or push them in any different ways, or is it just sort of like, here's your route, get it done? The more you get done, the more you get paid. Is it a little bit of both?
No, I mean, we've over the last few years we've kind of adopted the fact that everybody that puts on a uniform, whether they're in the office or whether they're cleaning a pool or doing HVAC work, everyone is a potential salesman. They're in front of people. Mm-hmm. So we've developed an internal program. We call it "Oh, by the way," and we train all of our technicians regardless of the line of service that they're in. But I mean, if somebody were to come into your house and taking care of your pool, but your air condition kicked on and it made a noise, while that pool tech is not going to be able to diagnose your air conditioner, he does at least know enough to say, hey, Chris, I was out there, I heard your compressor kick in, it kind of made a strange noise. Would you like for one of our guys to, come out and take a look at that for you?
By the way, did you know we also can take care of that?
Oh, by the way, exactly.
Yeah.
So everybody is trained up to the point where, again, we're not trying to make them technical experts in every field. We're trying to give them enough information to make them comfortable to have the conversation. And then, so if they make that sale, they can be compensated from a sales standpoint. But if they're not comfortable enough to have that conversation that leads to a sale, if they want to just call that into the office and say, hey, I was at Chris's house, discovered there's an AC problem, he would like somebody to come out, we call that a lead generation.
Yeah.
And so if you keep the appointment to have, the HVAC person come out, then that technician is going to get paid for a lead.
I see.
There's different ways
to incentivize them, and not just in the job that they're actually doing at my house that time with the pool. Right.
Exactly. And then, of course, every month we have the top lead producers. Then they get an extra bonus on top of that for, so we reward the top 3 folks that generate leads every month. So, there's other ways and other opportunities to supplement their income as well. And it's really been a well-adopted, well rolled out program, and the technicians have embraced it. So it's been a good thing.
That's smart. Yeah. I mean, well, in your business model too, you have that ability to always be looking for that extra thing, which is right. Again, is nice about the business model. Just a couple more things before we close the episode. Maybe it's a little different in your business. You're a bit bigger than maybe some that would be listening. I've talked to owners about this concept of always looking, really, right? So I'm always willing to talk and to look at a resume of a potential employee because I'm going to need one at some point. A little more proactive, if you will. So we're, are you hiring? Well, we're always looking, right? And we're willing to look, as opposed to this reactive measure where it's, we're down 3, I need to fill these roles, so now I'm out looking. Do you see value in that strategy of always looking? Maybe not necessarily you want to hire at the moment, but you're always willing to take things in. I'm just wondering a little bit about your thoughts on that. Again, I know it's a little different when you have a bigger company with a lot of different services, but if someone listening to this is debating, should I get ahead of it? Because I feel like I might get some. What do you think about that idea?
No, I think if you're not always looking, I think you're missing a lot of great opportunities to pull talent in. I know just me personally, I mean, if I'm out and somebody provides, above and beyond customer service, I mean, I'm never without business cards in my pocket. Right. I'm not bashful and say, hey, I really appreciate what you did for me today. You went above and beyond, in my opinion. Here, if you're ever, looking to do something different or your situation changes, hey, please give me a call or go online here and fill this out. And the other thing is, with our applicant tracking system, if you don't make it through the hiring, rotation now, I still have your information.
Right. Correct.
And,
right.
I mean, I may have 3 jobs and 60 applicants. I've probably got another 15 or 20 applicants that on any given day could be a great employee here. So I'm always going back and farming through and looking at previous applicants and right now we're gearing up for the quote unquote busy season. So I know how many more people we need to grow by. So I'm going back through almost on a daily basis, depending on departmental fluctuations. And I'm looking for people, already in our system. I already have a resume. And quite honestly, sometimes we've already had a phone conversation. So, I'm going back and looking through that. So, don't forget past applicants. Keep them present. That's a pipeline for you. So that's one alternative. But one of the things, and I've spoken at a couple of conventions, and I realize not every company is as large as ABC, but a lot of the local, a lot of your local workforces, depending on what, regardless of what state you're in, your workforce locations offer the opportunity a lot of times to go in and do job fairs dedicated to just your company. They're going to have veteran recruiters. They're going to have a list of veterans coming out of active service. They're going to have a list of veterans that have been out and are looking for a work. Network and build those relationships. Not everything you do looking for talent has to cost a lot of money.
Is that a strong piece of ABC with veterans? I'm just curious. Is that something you guys look to?
No, it's definitely a strong piece. And I think for people in this industry, if they haven't made the connection there, if you think about a lot of the things that our veterans have to do in their day-to-day service, they don't have a desk job. They don't have a manager directly supervising them. There's a great deal of autonomy with a lot of the things that happen in the military. They're highly trained, but they're out there performing, not necessarily with a great deal of supervision. So in the service industries, whether it's pest control, HVAC, plumbing, regardless of what it is, that military mindset and the way that military people are self-starters and self-motivators, they're a great fit for service industries. So, yeah, to your point, Chris, I'm in touch with my Dallas-Fort Worth military liaisons at our workforce offices pretty much on a monthly basis.
Really? Just talking like who's coming, like, and just seeing what's available. And they check.
Yeah, I mean, and they have free job boards. So, again, for maybe some folks that are at smaller companies looking at this, you get teamed up with your local workforce. Their job boards are usually free to post. In our case here in Texas, the first 48 hours, those job postings, the new ones, are dedicated strictly to veterans for the first 48 hours. So if you are interested in veteran employees, that's a great way to get them. But again, those workforce centers do offer a lot of services free of charge that employers can take advantage of. And as big as ABC is, I take full advantage of everything that I can go do that doesn't necessarily cost us, out of our budget every month to go do something. So
yeah, man, it's smart. I mean, I've heard about that, and I know there's a strong representation. And Zach Dilla, who I work with at Field Routes, we talked about this too. As there is a lot of. You're right. Like, it's a very similar in the structure. Obviously, what they're doing is obviously different, but it's similar in that structure. It's not like coming into a desk and just sitting there all day and doing that. That is not. This is a skill. You're being trained. You're being out. You're going out. There's an element of respect involved because you're interacting with humans and you have to talk to people, right? So there's that, which is one of the things about the armed services is that level of respect. So it makes a lot of sense that could be a good fit. As we close here. If I'm listening to the show and I'm sitting here and I own a business in the industry, whether it's pest or lawn or something, and I'm saying to myself, man, I continue to struggle with recruiting. I try and I'm trying. Do you have any other tidbits maybe or things that maybe would be like something that you might offer to anyone out there that's looking to change it up or try something different or hear something else? Is there anything else that you could think of that might be beneficial, something that you heard or something that you've tried?
Yeah, well, I mean,
I know there's no magic bullet, but just just some other strategies.
Well, no, you're right. I mean, there is no magic bullet, and but one of the things that I would say is, don't just focus on the stuff that you can go out and pay for with online and soak up a lot of money in advertising budgets. We strike up relationships with our local independent school districts. Not every kid that's graduating high school this year is going to go to college. Yep. Not every kid's going to go volunteer to be in the military. So there's a lot of entry-level positions within our industries that people coming out of high schools can do. So a lot of your high schools will offer, again, free career fairs, job placement services. Get to know those high school career coaches and counselors. Get your name out there. Go visit. Take advantage of anything they have to do on campus. Same thing with the junior colleges and local trade schools in the area. We've partnered with numerous trade schools in the North Texas area. As they graduate HVAC students or plumbing students, we go visit them. We go talk to them. And again, none of this is really costing us a dime. It's costing us a little bit of our time, but it's certainly an investment that's worth making. It's investments that if a lot of other people haven't thought about doing it or don't realize that resource is there, these career counselors at high schools and colleges, they've got to get people employed as well. So, get out there, get your name out there, attend job fairs. Most of these places will do stuff that you can just show up to. There's no charge other than your time, and it's kind of networking. Which from the old sales guy in me, networking and people knowing who you are and where you are.
Hey,
makes a big
pound on
difference.
the pavement. Those old sales tactics, they still work.
Yep.
They are
They
still,
still work.
Don't look past them. Adam,
right.
I really want to thank you for taking the time and talking to me and talking to all of us that are listening out there. And I hope everybody learned something from your, what you offered, which is very insightful for someone that's done it. So I appreciate the time. Thank you very much. So I want to again thank Adam Creed from ABC for joining us today. And just remind everyone out there that's listening, if you wanted more information about the show, you can go to BeFieldFamous.com. Tell your friends. You can subscribe or follow is the word now on Apple Podcasts. And remember, your success is fame worthy. Thanks a lot. Have a good day. I appreciate the time.